less. So please understand, if he does any of the things I'm going to mention in this video, it is time to let him go. My name is Stefan Labossiere, aka Stefan Speaks, back for another relationship and dating advice video for women. And like I said, we're going to be talking about if he does these 7 things, it's time to let him go. All right. Before we get started, as always, be sure to like the video, share it, and subscribe to this channel, and hit that notification button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video, go live, or anything like that. So anyways, let's get right to it. All right. A lot of women deal with a lot of nonsense, okay? And sometimes not sure when they should let the guy go, give him a chance, maybe this can be fixed. And I'm here to kind of clear this whole thing up and give you the information you need so you can make a well-informed decision and do what's truly best for you. So I'm going to break this whole thing down, and we're going to start with some major red flags you need to look for in men, all right? And now let me just also mention, I'm going to say some things you're probably not expecting, all right? And some things you probably are going to expect. But either way, comment below. Tell me what you think some of the red flags are. But let's get to it. Red flag number 1 in men to look for. He asks you to go 50-50 on the bills. Now listen, I'm joking and I'm kind of not joking, okay? Let me break this down for you. So now clearly, asking you to go 50-50 is a relationship thing, and we've gone past the dating phase. But let's start with the dating phase. You go on a date. Let's say a man asks you out on a date, and this man is asking you at the end of the night to now split the bill with him or to even cover the bill with him. This is a red flag to me. Now, here's the thing. It's not that I think it's wrong if a woman decides she wants to pay for a date. Not that I'm telling you should. That's your decision, okay? Nothing wrong if you decided you want to go Dutch, whatever the case may be. If you offer to cover the tip, I always say that's a great thing, just offering to pay for the tip. All those things are okay, but we're talking about this man took it upon himself to ask you on a date and then ask you to either go half or pay for the date. Here's the thing. No man who is serious or trying to impress a woman is going to be taking the risk of asking her to go half. I'm not saying it's impossible for a man to like a woman and do that, but it is extremely unlikely, all right? Because men understand that when they find something or find a woman that they value or see value in, that they highly desire, they're trying to make sure they give themselves the best chance of moving forward with that woman in whatever direction they're trying to go. So men inherently know pulling a move like that, it's probably going to work against you. So the fact that he's willing to do that says he probably is not taking this situation that serious. But let's move on into now, maybe let's say he didn't do that in the first day. Let's say he took care of it. You guys, got to know each other. You liked each other. Now you get in a relationship or you're about to get into one. And whether it's you guys have discussed getting into it or you're now there, at some point, he talks about going 50-50. Now, listen, I think it's very smart, very wise for a woman to discuss these things in the dating process, to find out what kind of mindset this man has and how he goes about the finances in a relationship. Now, let me make clear, it's not that I'm like completely against the idea that two people decide with each other that they want to do 50-50. Now, personally, I do believe in the man being the protector and a provider. I personally don't believe in asking a woman to pay 50-50. And I think men should strive to put themselves in a position or have that flexibility. But the reason why I bring it up as a major red flag, and here's the caveat before I continue. If he makes significantly more than you, or he has enough money that he can easily cover the bills, all right? That's the important part. Because if this man is genuinely either, I don't want to say broke, but let's just call it what it is. Let's say he's broke or he generally just doesn't make that much. But you guys have found love in each other. You two have agreed you want to move forward with each other. And you guys agree that going 50-50 is the best financial route for right now until maybe you guys get to a better place. I can't knock that because he's in a genuine place where he can't do more than that. I would still encourage any man, if you can't go better than 50-50, then make sure you are still contributing to the relationship in other ways that remove some burden off of the woman. But again, that's a fair scenario. But we're talking about a scenario where this guy is capable. He has it. And he's still asking you for 50-50. Now, let me paint the picture very clearly. I've had situations where a client, let's say she was making $35,000 a year. The guy that she was with was making $85,000 a year. They move in together, and he asked her to go 50-50. To me, that's absolutely ridiculous. And a huge red flag, because when a man has it, and he is truly in love with the woman, truly into that woman, truly serious about that woman, he wants to do for her. All right? If you survey men who are genuinely serious about relationships or serious about the woman they're with, and again, they have the resources, they don't have an issue at least carrying the greater burden financially. So for that man to be in a position where he can, but he chooses not to, says to me, he is not that serious about you in this relationship. Some people may want to argue that, but I'm sorry, I just have not found that. The only maybe what's the word? Exception, if you want to get it, exception to this is he's been traumatized by being used for his money before, which you can still then argue, is he truly ready for a relationship if he's now going to carry that emotional trauma and baggage into the relationship with you, all right? But let's leave that exception to the side and just go with not. This guy just believes 50-50. Now, listen, here's the other problem I have with 50-50. There's a lot of problems I have with 50-50. I'm going to do this a whole video on that. And I have a previous live I posted on the channel where I talk a little bit more about 50-50. But anyways, to me, he's making 85, she's making 35. Let's say the rent or the mortgage, let's say the rent is $1,000, all right? Both of them contributing $500 is not 50-50 to me, because one makes more money than the other. 50-50 to me, real, genuine equality in that dynamic would be 20% of her income, 20% of his income. Something of that nature, where it's the percentage of income. So now the burden of the financial contribution is more equal, rather than she's taking a bigger chunk out of her money, and to him that $500 is nothing. All right. So I don't want to drag too deep into this or go too deep in this right now, but I do believe, again, there is a real concern when a man who is in a position to take care of that woman, or again, at least carry the burden, a greater burden, maybe it's 70-30, whatever those two people want to agree upon. If he's not even willing to do that, how serious is he about you? And it's typical from what I have seen that the man who is asking this woman to go 50-50, when again, he is capable of at least carrying a heavier burden financially, when you evaluate the overall relationship, there's other issues. There's other things he's not doing. There's other ways he's being inconsiderate. There's other ways that he's neglecting the woman, which all plays to the fact he's just not that serious about her. But I guarantee if he was madly in love with that woman, it would be a completely different story. So again, this is something that you should discuss as early as possible, because you don't want to wait till you're in that dynamic, in that situation, to now find out this is how he feels about you, okay? You want to talk about it, because most men, it's rare for a man to say in the dating process, oh yeah, I'll take care of the bills, I'm this, I'm that, and then turn around and say, nah, it's 50-50. That's typically not going to happen. I'm not saying it never happens, but that's typically not going to happen. So he will show his cards if you're willing to ask the right questions. So you got to dig deep and find out where he stands with that. Because again, it may seem like an insignificant issue. And for those of you who say, well, I don't have no problem giving my half, that's cool. But his mindset on this speaks to a larger issue at hand and can be a huge red flag. So let's get to number two. Number two is he isn't willing to discuss issues, all right? So I can't tell you how many times I've posted a video, posted a quote, whatever, talking about the need to talk to your partner and express yourself. And women will comment saying, well, what's the point? I can't talk to him. He never listens. And my true, genuine response to them is, then why the hell are you with him? Like, I don't get it. If you cannot talk to this man, if you have made several attempts and he shuts you down. He's dismissive. He dances around this topic. He deflects. You simply cannot communicate with him. Why are you still there? The reality is that this is a huge red flag simply because there is no way you can have a successful, healthy relationship with a man who is unwilling to communicate with you. Now, granted, I understand some men have a struggle with opening up and communicating. But let's start with, is he even willing to listen to you? Because in this example that I'm giving, this man is shutting the woman down over and over and over, not even allowing for her to express herself. That's a huge problem. And again, it's a problem because without communication, how can we overcome these issues? How can we solve these problems? How can we get on the same page? As well as for you to have to be in a relationship, a committed relationship where you're pouring into this man, but you feel unheard, you're going to start to feel devalued. You're going to start to feel disrespected. You're going to start to resent him. It's going to create a lot of negative and toxic energy. Then, whether it's conscious or subconsciously, you're going to start to retaliate. You're going to start to act out. You may start to withhold intimacy. You may start to speak more disrespectfully to him. You may start to be more shut down with him. Things that are only going to make matters worse. And the sad reality is that many of you, or you know many other people who've done just that and who have tried to drag along these types of relationships for months, for years, and continue on. Again, it is very important that there is an established environment of communication and openness and transparency, and that has to begin in the dating phase. You don't wait till you guys are in an official relationship, but you don't wait till you get married to try to figure out if you can talk to each other. You've got to figure that out while dating. You got to get deeper into each other while dating. And I think one of the problems is that so many individuals, and this may apply to you, are so afraid to be vulnerable, so afraid to open up and show themselves that they restrict the ability to go into in-depth conversation while in the dating process. And instead, they remain on the surface of the relationship, just enjoying it, getting along. Again, we have fun together. Maybe you guys are having sex and it's great sex, whatever the case may be. And you're letting that be the reason why you can push forward. But you're not actually allowing yourself to let the guard down at least enough, which I think should let it go down completely, but that's another video I'll explain more in depth. But let it down at least enough to dive deeper into each other to see, can we even talk about have the deeper discussions? Can we talk about the things that maybe are a little bit uncomfortable at times? It's important that we explore that so we know, are we with someone that we can really talk to? Because if not, it's just not going to work. And so if he's unwilling to communicate, he's unwilling to hear you out, then this is a huge red flag you need to be aware of. So now number three. Number three is he doesn't want to give you a title. Now listen, some of y'all might be saying, titles ain't important. What's the big deal? You know, as long as we love each other, blah, blah, blah. All right, listen, it's extremely important. Again, the title is important because it's about the message it sends, and it's about the mindset of the individual when they don't want to give you one. I've seen so many people drag along in titleless relationships, situationships, all right, not truly knowing what this is and nothing truly being defined. And then seeing that lack of definition blow up in their face later when they actually seek some clarity on the situation. When the woman now goes to the man and says, okay, well, what are we doing here? And he's like, yo, we're just enjoying ourselves. Like, I never told you you're my girlfriend. I never told you I had plans for you to be my wife. I never told you anything other than let's just have fun. Let's just go with the flow, you know, whatever. So you're only playing yourself when you allow yourself to go without the title. My thing is this. For those who say it's not a big deal, if it's not a big deal, then why not give it? If it's really not that serious, then why is it so hard to simply say officially, you are my girlfriend, you are my man, we are in a committed relationship? Is that really that hard to verbalize? Is that really that hard to put a stamp on? I don't think so. So when you are unwilling to do that, it speaks to the fact that you are trying to leave the door open. In most cases, that's what's going on. You're leaving the door open for other possibilities. You are not trying to be held to certain standards. Now, speaking about the man or even the woman, but this is for the women. So the man who is unwilling to give definition to the relationship, that's typically what it is. Now, I have come across scenarios where some men have expressed to me where they've been traumatized, where they were dating a woman and they felt like the minute they put a title on it, everything went left. All right. And I'm not saying that wasn't a genuine experience that happened, meaning that it honestly happened in their life. And I'm not saying that they aren't honestly traumatized. Okay. I believe that can happen. However, again, that speaks to unresolved trauma. And that means, are you truly ready then to be in any kind of relationship if you're still holding on to what happened in the past? You need to resolve that. And so as the woman who is dating that man, possibly, he can't just use that as a scapegoat and an excuse. He has to face his issue. And he has to be willing to now give you the title. Now, here's the thing. If you are a woman that knows you want a title, please do not not even a compromise. Please do not sacrifice the need to have some kind of definition, some kind of clarity to the relationship. Because you trying to act like you're okay for the sake of holding on to him is only going to destroy you slowly but surely from the inside. It's only going to cause you to become miserable and again, create insecurities, create other issues. And then what you don't realize is your struggle to handle that, because it's going to come to the surface some way, somehow. Your struggle to handle that and now seep out in a negative way is only going to add more damage to the relationship. And so now what will happen is he will use those moments of acting out and your moments of insecurity against you to say, this is why I don't want to be with you yet. This is why I won't give you a title. You see, he will use it against you, but that's because you played yourself by trying to act like you were okay. You should have been real from day one. Now, I don't want you to beat yourself up because some of y'all might be in that situation right now. But I do want to encourage you to stand in your truth, to express yourself calmly and lovingly, and I'll get more into that later in the video. But the point is, be real about what you want. But understand when he is unwilling to give you a title, that is a red flag you have to be mindful of. So now let's get to number 4. And number 4 is an obvious one: when he gets verbally or physically abusive. All right. So this is a delicate topic in the sense that, many women have gone through this. Many women have gone through this silently. And unfortunately, I have to say that so many have tolerated it because they've seen this growing up. They've seen this in their households, and they've become accustomed to the dysfunction of verbal or physical abuse. And I want to say especially verbal abuse because there's this tendency to want to excuse verbal abuse. And what I mean by that is, for example, just an example, I've seen people, let's say someone is married and the woman is being physically abused, and they will automatically say, okay, leave him. He's putting his hands on you. You can't accept that. Leave. They understand that this is a line that has to be drawn. But when it's verbal abuse, they want to look past that. Oh, well, give it more time, give it a chance. And my thing is, that's a very dangerous approach in the sense that verbal abuse has very lasting effects, can cause a lot of trauma within someone, and can deteriorate them in more ways than one. And even though that person may not be physically putting their hands on you, they are physically harming you in the sense that all that emotional stress is destroying you. All that emotional stress is going to trigger disease and ailments and all kinds of issues. There are a lot of people who have developed all kinds of problems because they were in toxic relationships. So I don't want us to diminish the impact of verbal abuse. Of course, physical abuse, we know what that is, but verbal abuse is something that should not be overlooked. So ultimately, When a man is getting verbally abusive, now, of course, I'm not saying the minute he says something, that he shouldn't say, that means run for the hills. And again, I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go along in the video. But it is a red flag. At the end of the day, when he gets verbally abusive, it is clearly a red flag that has to be addressed. All right. And I will say that just as I mentioned that there are women who tolerate it because of what they grew up in, there are men who engage in it because of what they grew up in. And they also think it's normal. That's not to make an excuse for it, but it is to say that so many are transferring the energy that they lived through as a child into their relationships as adults. All right. And I have seen situations, and I do not want anyone to take this the wrong way, but I have had situations where men have come to me who were verbally abusive, and if I'm honest, who even at a moment was physically abusive, saying, I need help. I want to fix this. I don't want to be like this. I lost my cool. I have a problem. But it's important to know that these men were seeking help, all right? They didn't just do it, say sorry to the woman, and then go back to acting like everything is all good. These men actually went out to get help, all right? Because it was a moment for them and not a consistent behavior. But don't take that out of context. I know I'm gonna have to do a video. I keep saying that. I'm gonna do a video on that to really go more in depth. But the point is, I just had to mention those things. But the point is, verbal, physical abuse, definitely a red flag. Definitely a sign that you're probably gonna have to let this man go. And I say probably because, again, I'll explain that more a little bit later. So keep watching this video. But that is an issue, bottom line. And you cannot tolerate it. You cannot make excuses for it. But here's something that needs to be said as well, all right? And please hear me out. You have to make sure you're not being verbally and physically abusive yourself, all right? That isn't to say that you having engaged in that is an automatic excuse or free pass for that other individual, for that man, to do the same. It's just to say that I've seen too many times where the woman is contributing to or creating or even the main aggressor in having a verbally abusive or physically abusive relationship. And the truth of the matter is that there are men who are in physically abusive and verbally abusive relationships who unfortunately are not seeking help, who may feel ashamed, who may feel like they have nowhere to go to, all right? And I want everyone, man or woman, if you are in or ever find yourself in a physically or verbally abusive relationship, please, there's a domestic abuse hotline. Check it out. I'll have the number pop up on the screen for you. So make sure you give it a call so that you can get the help you need if you find yourself or are in those types of situations. But to get back to the point, as a woman, you got to check yourself too. Don't put your hands on him. You don't want him to put your hands on you. Don't put your hands on him. You don't want him disrespecting you. Don't be disrespecting him either. Everyone has to hold themselves accountable to not pouring toxic, abusive energy into a relationship. Everyone has to unlearn those behaviors and address the root issues that have led to you engaging in that, all right? But again, very important red flag you need to be aware of. Next on the list, number 5, is he keeps you a secret, all right? So listen, the reality is this. When a man is serious about you, when a man is serious about this relationship, he is not trying to hide you, all right? Now, let me make clear, it doesn't automatically mean that he wants to post you all over the internet. Some men are not into that, all right? So I'm not going to say that his unwillingness to post is this red flag automatically. Could it be a symptom of one? It is possible. But I don't want you to jump to that conclusion. I want you to evaluate overall, what is he doing in regards to showing you and putting you out there versus hiding you. So my thing is, if he's not posting you, you don't meet family, you don't meet his friends, nobody knows who the hell you are. Okay, that's clearly a man who's hiding you. And that's clearly a red flag, because why? Why? Is he hiding you from his other women or his wife? Is he hiding you because, again, he doesn't take you that serious? Is he hiding you because, again, he doesn't want you to think you guys are really in a relationship like that? I mean, whatever the reason is, you're not going to see a man who's genuinely in love or serious about a woman not want to introduce her to anybody? No friends, no family, no nothing. Now listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. Yes, there are some situations where he can introduce you to the family and the whole family is in on scamming you in this relationship, okay? They're all in on playing you. And I hate to laugh, but I'm just saying it does happen. But typically, all right, a willingness to show you off, a willingness to present you, at least you can give some benefit of the doubt there. But when he's doing the opposite, the complete opposite, then that is a problem. And that is a concern because, again, men who are serious just don't behave in that manner. And I've seen a lot of women accept it under these BS excuses that are given. And to me, there's just no rationale for him not wanting anyone to meet you and know about you. I've even had some situations where the woman, the only time they met up was in a hotel room. All right. And she continued to deal with him. And it was like, why are you doing this? Why? Especially when you know you're not happy about it. Again, it's very important that you stay true to your feelings and what you deserve and what you require in a relationship. And if that cannot be honored and respected, then yes, you're going to have to let that man go. Number 6, and this one you may not have been expecting, but number 6 is he tells you all men cheat. Now listen. This might be a new one for a lot of you because, I mean, people don't really talk about this. But here's the thing. I'm going to be very transparent here. I think everyone is capable of cheating, okay? I think you put people in the right circumstances, push the right buttons, the stars are aligned. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen, and you know, sometimes you may find yourself in a situation that you never expected. I think that's possible. But the reason why him saying all men cheat is a huge red flag is because, number one, I do not believe all men cheat. Are there a lot of men who cheat? Yes. All? No, absolutely not. There are plenty of men who have never stepped out in their relationship, all right? And to be quite honest with you, there are plenty of men who are just happy to get one woman. So they're not trying to be out there. Hell, they just can't. They're not even getting women like that to have the option to cheat. So some may want to argue, well, the man who has options will cheat. That's a whole different discussion. We'll dive into that another time. But to flat out say all men cheat is to tell you, I plan on cheating. All right, think about that. If I'm going to say to you that all men cheat, I'm essentially preparing your brain for what's inevitable here. Because if I believe all men do it, that means I believe I do it. That means I'm not even trying to not do it. See, that's the thing. I'm not saying even the guy who does not say that won't ever possibly cheat. I'm not saying that even the guy who has genuine intention to not cheat may never find himself in that situation. What I am saying, though, is if he blatantly says all men do it, then chances are he plans to do it. Chances are that's the lifestyle he lives. Now, listen, you're a grown woman. If that's what you're okay with signing up for, that's your decision. I'm not saying to sign up for it. I'm not co-signing in any kind of way. I am saying you are a grown adult. So if a man makes it plain and clear to you that that's how he gets down, and you are okay with that, again, your choice. I'm just making it very clear that when a man comes out of his mouth and says, and I stress the word, all men cheat. If he says a lot of men cheat, I don't think that's a red flag. I think that's a reasonable statement, all right? Even though I don't necessarily agree, but I think it's a reasonable statement. But to say all men cheat, end of story, then that's what's going to happen. Plain and simple. So it is a red flag. It's something to be mindful of and to be aware of if you're going to move forward or continue to move forward with that man while in a relationship. Number 7 is he blatantly neglects your needs, all right? At the end of the day, a relationship is about two people, I stress two people, man and woman, pouring into each other. So please do not think I'm saying only he has to pour into your needs. You got to pour into his needs as well. It's two people pouring into each other, embracing each other's needs, respecting each other's feelings, willing to communicate. So when he is unwilling or when he is blatantly neglecting your needs, dismissing your feelings, this is a red flag. This is a sign to let him go because he's not serious about you. He is not serious about this relationship. He is unwilling to put forth the necessary effort to bring health and happiness to this dynamic. And it's important for you not to overlook that and neglect that. Now, I know some of you may think, well, why in the world would we be with a man who blatantly neglects us? Well, guess what? It happens every day. It happens all the time. I remember one time I had a client and she came to me and she was struggling with a man. She said, I love him so much. I've been with him for a few years and I don't want to let him go. And I said, okay, well, tell me why you love him. And she went down the list of all the things she does for him. Everything she mentioned was what she did for him. And when she finished the list, I said, okay, that sounds great. What does he do for you? She dead silence. She had nothing to say. And she said, oh my goodness, he does nothing. And it's almost like this was the first time she was really, truly either realizing it, accepting it, or that it hit her in her face strong enough for her to be awakened. That the whole time she was basing the relationship off of what she was willing to do for him rather than the fact that he was doing nothing for her. And not just doing nothing for her, when she requested things, he was dismissing it. He was blatantly neglecting. He was blatantly pushing her to the side, her needs and desires to the side. This is a red flag. This is a reason to let him go. You should not accept that kind of treatment. Again, healthy, successful relationship requires two people pouring into each other to make each other happy. So again, when we talk about turning the tables, we talk about not taking accountability. This all plays into him always being defensive. He does not take any level of criticism well. Even when you try to be nice and sweet, he takes it the wrong way. He fights back, pushes back. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. If you speak to someone in an attacking manner, it is human nature to be defensive in that way. So you have to be mindful of how you're speaking to someone, how you're expressing yourself to that man. And that goes for anyone. If I was speaking to men, I would tell them the same thing. Anytime someone feels attacked, genuinely, they're going to become defensive. However, if you express yourself in a calm and loving manner, and they're still getting defensive, a liar uses that defensiveness as a defense mechanism. They use that to then deflect, to then turn the tables, to now introduce anger into the situation, to again make you lose track of what this whole conversation was really about. It's easy to manipulate people with anger, with all this negative energy to get you to back down and stop coming at him with what you're trying to address. So again, when we talk about turning the tables, we talk about not taking accountability, this all plays into him always being defensive. He does not take any level of criticism well. Even when you try to be nice and sweet, he takes it the wrong way. He fights back, pushes back. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. If you speak to someone in an attacking manner, it is human nature to be defensive in that way. So you have to be mindful of how you're speaking to someone, how you're expressing yourself to that man. And that goes for anyone. If I was speaking to men, I would tell them the same thing. Anytime someone feels attacked, genuinely, they're going to become defensive. However, if you express yourself in a calm and loving manner, and they're still getting defensive, a liar uses that defensiveness as a defense mechanism. They use that to then deflect, to then turn the tables, to now introduce anger into the situation, to again make you lose track of what this whole conversation was really about. It's easy to manipulate people with anger, with all this negative energy to get you to back down and stop coming at him with what you're trying to address. So again, when we talk about turning the tables, we talk about not taking accountability, this all plays into him always being defensive. He does not take any level of criticism well. Even when you try to be nice and sweet, he takes it the wrong way. He fights back, pushes back. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. If you speak to someone in an attacking manner, it is human nature to be defensive in that way. So you have to be mindful of how you're speaking to someone, how you're expressing yourself to that man. And that goes for anyone. If I was speaking to men, I would tell them the same thing. Anytime someone feels attacked, genuinely, they're going to become defensive. However, if you express yourself in a calm and loving manner and they're still getting defensive, a liar uses that defensiveness as a defense mechanism. They use that to then deflect, to then turn the tables, to now introduce anger into the situation, to again make you lose track of what this whole conversation was really about. It's easy to manipulate people with anger, with all this negative energy, to get you to back down and stop coming at him with what you're trying to address. So again, when we talk about turning the tables, we talk about not taking accountability. This all plays into him always being defensive. He does not take any level of criticism well. Even when you try to be nice and sweet, he takes it the wrong way. He fights back, pushes back. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. If you speak to someone in an attacking manner, it is human nature to be defensive in that way. So you have to be mindful of how you're speaking to someone, how you're expressing yourself to that man. And that goes for anyone. If I was speaking to men, I would tell them the same thing. Anytime someone feels attacked, genuinely, they're going to become defensive. However, if you express yourself in a calm and loving manner and they're still getting defensive, a liar uses that defensiveness as a defense mechanism. They use that to then deflect, to then turn the tables, to now introduce anger into the situation, to again make you lose track of what this whole conversation was really about. It's easy to manipulate people with anger, with all this negative energy, to get you to back down and stop coming at him with what you're trying to address. So again, when we talk about turning the tables, we talk about not taking accountability. This all plays into him always being defensive. He does not take any level of criticism well. Even when you try to be nice and sweet, he takes it the wrong way. He fights back, pushes back. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. If you speak to someone in an attacking manner, it is human nature to be defensive in that way. So you have to be mindful of how you're speaking to someone, how you're expressing yourself to that man. And that goes for anyone. If I was speaking to men, I would tell them the same thing. Anytime someone feels attacked, genuinely, they're going to become defensive. However, if you express yourself in a calm and loving manner and they're still getting defensive, a liar uses that defensiveness as a defense mechanism. They use that to then deflect, to then turn the tables, to now introduce anger into the situation, to again make you lose track of what this whole conversation was really about. It's easy to manipulate people with anger, with all this negative energy, to get you to back down and stop coming at him with what you're trying to address. So again, when we talk about turning the tables, we talk about not taking accountability. This all plays into him always being defensive. He does not take any level of criticism well. Even when you try to be nice and sweet, he takes it the wrong way. He fights back, pushes back. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. If you speak to someone in an attacking manner, it is human nature to be defensive in that way. So you have to be mindful of how you're speaking to someone, how you're expressing yourself to that man. And that goes for anyone. If I was speaking to men, I would tell them the same thing. Anytime someone feels attacked, genuinely, they're going to become defensive. However, if you express yourself in a calm and loving manner and they're still getting defensive, a liar uses that defensiveness as a defense mechanism. They use that to then deflect, to then turn the tables, to now introduce anger into the situation, to again make you lose track of what this whole conversation was really about. It's easy to manipulate people with anger, with all this negative energy, to get you to back down and stop coming at him with what you're trying to address. So again, when we talk about turning the tables, we talk about not taking accountability. This all plays into him always being defensive. He does not take any level of criticism well. Even when you try to be nice and sweet, he takes it the wrong way. He fights back, pushes back. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. If you speak to someone in an attacking manner, it is human nature to be defensive in that way. So you have to be mindful of how you're speaking to someone, how you're expressing yourself to that man. And that goes for anyone. If I was speaking to men, I would tell them the same thing. Anytime someone feels attacked, genuinely, they're going to become defensive. However, if you express yourself in a calm and loving manner and they're still getting defensive, a liar uses that defensiveness as a defense mechanism. They use that to then deflect, to then turn the tables, to now introduce anger into the situation, to again make you lose track of what this whole conversation was really about. It's easy to manipulate people with anger, with all this negative energy, to get you to back down and stop coming at him with what you're trying to address, because that's what love makes a man do. That's what love makes anyone do. All right. So always be mindful of that and pay attention to that very important sign. All right. So now let's get to number 5 on this list. And number 5 is he opens up to you and he lets you into his world. So again, when you are dealing with men who are not serious about you, they're not trying to typically bring you into their world. They're not trying to open up. They're not trying to integrate you into the other aspects of their life. They're trying to even minimize you meeting people if possible. Hell, in some situations, flat out hide you. But the man who loves you is a completely opposite of that. He wants to bring you into his world. He wants the people he loves to meet you. All right? Because that's what love makes a man do. That's what love makes anyone do. All right. So always be mindful of that and pay attention to that very important sign. All right. So now let's get to number 5 on this list. And number 5 is he opens up to you and he lets you into his world. So again, when you are dealing with men who are not serious about you, they're not trying to typically bring you into their world. They're not trying to open up. They're not trying to integrate you into the other aspects of their life. They're trying to even minimize you meeting people if possible. Hell, in some situations, flat out hide you. But the man who loves you is a completely opposite of that. He wants to bring you into his world. He wants the people he loves to meet you. All right? Because if he is still unwilling or unable to say, I love you, that's a red flag. So before we get deeper into the red flag, let me say this. In the vast majority of cases, the man who is deeply in love with you is not going to have a problem saying, I love you. If anything, he's trying to hold it back in the sense that maybe he does think it's too soon. He doesn't want to run you off. So he's holding off and trying to measure when he can say this and it's safe. Okay. But he damn sure doesn't have a problem saying it, especially after you're able to say it, especially after you guys have been months or are officially in a relationship. You know what I'm saying? Or again, years in, whatever, he's not going to have a problem saying those words. And when you hear about these stories or see it, or some of you are living it, where these men just don't say it and they have every excuse in the book, we have to consider the red flags such as, okay, is this man truly just traumatized and needs healing and struggles when it comes to being expressive in that way? That is possible. I don't want to rule it out, right? However, we cannot allow that to be a scapegoat. I need to make clear off the jump. Though again, those words alone don't mean he's a user, or any variation of that phrase alone does not mean he's a user. Because I do believe that there may be an instance where even you as a woman have to say, listen, I'm not going for that. And it's either we can agree to do things this way or we can't work together. Does that mean you're automatically a user? No. However, when it's the my way or the highway all the time, when everything has to be the way that he wants it, when he has no flexibility, no willingness to compromise, oh, hell no. Like this dude, yes, he's using you. End of story. This is a problem. And even if you somehow wanted to make the argument that he's not using you, he's trying to control you. Somehow this isn't healthy, all right? Because real relationships, successful relationships, require a level of compromise. Period. There's no way around it. I've never sat down with a happy couple that never had a moment of compromise. So when he shows no ability, no willingness to do that, that is a very, very huge red flag that this man is using you. But for a lot of people, they view humbleness as dimming your own light. They view humbleness as selling yourself short. They view humbleness as not embracing your self-worth. And that's why it's tricky, because I don't want even a man listening to this to think that's what I'm saying when I say humble. I more so mean, and maybe the better way to say it was not arrogant, not cocky in this negative, unhealthy way. All right. And preferably, because I am a believer, I would want the man to be humble in the sense of having God in his life. Because I do think that a man who has God in his life carries at least some level of humility in him. And it's that humbleness that allows a man to receive correction. It's that humbleness that allows a man to be more understanding and open and patient with somebody. It's that humbleness that allows a man to not allow his pride to get the best of him in many situations that can then wreak havoc in a relationship. But I do feel the need to say that again, there are a lot of good men out there who have not learned how to be properly humble from my perspective. Okay. And so I think, again, this is one of those things where I don't want to automatically write a man off as not good if he's not humble in this way. But I do think it's something that should be discussed. But for a lot of people, they view everyone needs to embrace the ability to see, where can I improve? And men who have developed to a certain extent, men who are well-intentioned, right, are men who are more willing to take accountability, because the users, the manipulators, the men who are looking to wreak havoc in your life for their own selfish reasons, where they're not trying to be accountable. They're going to be the ones who turn the tables on you. When you bring up something about them, they're going to flip it back on you. Who's going to dodge conversations, who's going to make nothing but excuses, but never correction. And this is the sign of a man who you don't need to be dealing with. And unfortunately, I see a lot of women who come across this behavior. And because you think this is typical male behavior, you, in essence, dismiss it rather than address it to the point where if it can't be corrected, walk away. You essentially accept it. And by accepting it, and when I say accept it, you remain dealing with this man. You've essentially enabled his unwillingness to take accountability. And this is why I push so hard to let you know that no, better does exist. Men who hold themselves accountable do exist, because if you don't think those guys exist, you'll keep accepting the ones who don't. Everyone needs to embrace the ability to see, where can I improve? And men who have developed to a certain extent, men who are well-intentioned, right, are men who are more willing to take accountability, because the users, the manipulators, the men who are looking to wreak havoc in your life for their own selfish reasons, where they're not trying to be accountable. They're going to be the ones who turn the tables on you. When you bring up something about them, they're going to flip it back on you. Who's going to dodge conversations, who's going to make nothing but excuses, but never correction. And this is the sign of a man who you don't need to be dealing with. And unfortunately, I see a lot of women who come across this behavior. And because you think this is typical male behavior, you, in essence, dismiss it rather than address it to the point where if it can't be corrected, walk away. You essentially accept it. And by accepting it, and when I say accept it, you remain dealing with this man. You've essentially enabled his unwillingness to take accountability. And this is why I push so hard to let you know that no, better does exist. Men who hold themselves accountable do exist, because if you don't think those guys exist, you'll keep accepting the ones who don't. Where I'm weak, you find strength. You become strong and handle that. Where you're weak, I am your strength. We now counter the things that we struggle with, and we become this full unit that together we can conquer the world. When you identify and create that balance, you become a much more valued asset in a relationship. Because if you're simply bringing to the table everything he brings to the table, it creates this world of, okay, well, now I still need to find other things to fill in the blanks to be able to handle these things. But when you can be the person that, okay, I'm just using this as an example. If I am not great at managing things, all right, but you are awesome at managing stuff, now we're going to have a great balance where I can say, okay, I can rely on my partner to know how to run this stuff because I'm the doer, she's the manager. Where it shouldn't just be when it's a special day to get these things that you really, really want. So it's the same thing for him. Be consistent with those things. Keep pouring into it. And I'm telling you, when that happens, this man is not going to want to lose you. Plain and simple. Which brings me to number 4. Start taking better care of yourself. Now, this one encompasses so many different angles here. All right. So 1, let's start with what we kind of touched on in some of the earlier keys. As I said, it is very difficult to be positive, loving, to be his peace, and all these different things when you're not feeling good within yourself, when you're cranky, when you're lacking energy. So taking better care of yourself, phase 1, is simply about getting yourself into a better place mentally, spiritually, emotionally. All right. It shouldn't just be when it's a special day to get these things that you really, really want. So it's the same thing for him. Be consistent with those things. Keep pouring into it. And I'm telling you, when that happens, this man is not going to want to lose you. Plain and simple. Which brings me to number 4. Start taking better care of yourself. Now, this one encompasses so many different angles here. All right. So 1, let's start with what we kind of touched on in some of the earlier keys. As I said, it is very difficult to be positive, loving, to be his peace, and all these different things when you're not feeling good within yourself, when you're cranky, when you're lacking energy. So taking better care of yourself, phase 1, is simply about getting yourself into a better place mentally, spiritually, emotionally. All right. It shouldn't just, I need you to understand that, yes, sometimes the man is starting off genuine, does view you as this could be it, but something along the way changes his perception. All right. And sometimes I have to say this, sometimes you as a woman experience that same shift on your end in the process, but you chose not to let go. You chose, well, I'm already deep in, I'm going to keep this thing going. All right. Or you know what? I was hoping for better. I'm going to keep holding on to hope. And he simply fell off. I need you to understand that, yes, sometimes the man is starting off genuine, does view you as this could be it, but something along the way changes his perception. All right. And sometimes I have to say this, sometimes you as a woman experience that same shift on your end in the process, but you chose not to let go. You chose, well, I'm already deep in, I'm going to keep this thing going. All right. Or you know what? I was hoping for better. I'm going to keep holding on to hope. And he simply fell off. I need you to understand that, yeah.
The man God has for you. He will love and cherish you, not disrespect you. The man God has for you. He will love and cherish you, not disrespect you.
There's a lot of women that they want to hear from that man daily. And not only do they want to hear from him daily, they want to hear several times throughout the day. They want that morning text. They want an afternoon phone call. They want a nighttime phone call. Okay. You should communicate that. You should let that man know that. Because again, if he hears this and he's like, nah, I ain't got time for that, I can't do that, then we can just agree that this isn't going to work. Or at the very least, now that he knows what the standard is that you're setting, what you desire, now if he doesn't meet it, we don't have to play this game of, well, he didn't know and he just needs more time. No. I told you from the jump what it is. So if you can't meet it, what are we trying to discuss here? We just have to accept we are not a good fit. There's a lot of women that they want to hear from that man daily. And so you have to ask yourself, okay, if they did not need me right now, if I could not pour into them in those ways right now, would I still want to be around them? Would I still enjoy their presence? Can I still talk to them? Can I lean on them in the times that I need someone to lean on? Even though we talked about, how you have to show up for yourself. But yes, as partners, we do have to be able to show that we can be support for each other. And if that man is none of those things, then again, you have to recognize the difference between what you're holding on to. And so many people are holding on to the fantasy, the feeling, but not the person, and that's why, like, when some relationships end, The woman is more devastated about the fact that her chance of getting married is gone. Her chance of having kids has been set back. Her chance of now being able to have someone she can go to family dinners with is gone. She doesn't miss the person. She missed what it represented.
Oh, and the dream that what could have happened.
Yes, what it meant as far as all these situations that she would now have this man with her and what that represented for her and all these things. But it wasn't the man. He was just filling a space. He's pretty much interchangeable. That's a bad sign. You should not be with someone who just feels so, like I can just remove them, put someone else in their place, and I'm going to be just as good. And so you have to ask yourself, okay, if they did not need me right now, if I could not pour into them in those ways right now, would I still want to be around them? Would I still enjoy their presence? Can I still? He found out he was running these streets, cheating, acting a fool. She calls him up, all right? He's at my house. He's talking to her on the phone, and she's going in on him about the whole situation. But then next thing you know, he kind of walks away. I'm doing my own thing. But next thing you know, I hear him going off on her. All right. So now this whole conversation has switched to him being angry with her, him talking to her all kinds of ways. And by the end of the conversation, she's apologizing to him. But here's the kicker. When they hung up the phone, the first thing that man did was look at me and laugh. He knew exactly what he was doing. Liars and manipulators are fully aware. And again, that whole turn the tables on you, that is a huge behavior of a man who is a liar and a manipulator. He knows how to somehow make it your fault. How now, well, you did this wrong. Now it's on you so that he can take the spotlight off of him. It is classic deflection. And the sad thing is it works if you are not as aware as a woman. So let me just give you this quick tip. If you ever find yourself in a situation where someone's trying to turn the tables on you, don't fight them on what they're trying to now put on you. Stick to the script of what you called them about. And if they won't, do not continue the conversation. He found out he was running these streets, cheating, acting a fool. She calls him up, all right? He's at my house. He's talking to her on the phone, and she's going in on him about the whole situation. But then next thing you know, he kind of walks away. I'm doing my own thing. But next thing you know, I hear him going off on her. All right. So now this whole conversation has switched to him being angry with her, him talking to her all kinds of ways. And by the end of the conversation, she's apologizing to him. But here's the kicker. When they hung up the phone, the first thing that man did was look at me and laugh. He knew exactly what he was doing. Liars and manipulators are fully aware. And again, that whole turn the tables on you, that is a huge behavior of a man who is a liar and a manipulator. He knows how to somehow make it your fault. How now, well, you did this wrong. Now it's on you so that he can take the spotlight off of him. It is classic deflection. And the sad thing is it works if you are not as aware as a woman. So let me just give you this quick tip. If you ever find yourself in a situation where someone's trying to turn the tables on you, don't fight them on what they're trying to now put on you. Stick to the script of what you called them about. And if as a woman, you're probably asking, well, how the hell am I supposed to know when this man is trying to have a trap baby? All right, let me give you some tips, some warning signs to be aware of. Warning number one, he talks about having your baby before he talks about marrying you. Let me explain something to you. If a man is serious about being in your life, being committed to you, pouring into your needs, then he will be willing to discuss marriage. He will be willing to consider long-term commitment. When that man can't even talk marriage, but he's talking about, can you have my baby? You better run. Run for the hills, all right? This man is trying to set you up. And it sounds funny, but I'm telling you, this is for real. This is happening as we speak right now. And many of you listening to this podcast have experienced this. First dates, second dates, this man is already talking about putting the baby in you, but not talking about taking you to the courthouse. Not let's go ring shopping. Not what kind of house you want to live in. No, none of that. Because all he wants is to make sure he locks you in and you can't go anywhere. He isn't the right man. Thank God he's gone. Thank God he lost you. Thank God he is no longer in your life. It was a blessing. It may not have felt like that at the time, or it may not feel like that at the start of this video, but I'm hoping by the end of this, you understand. If that man was not for you, it was a blessing and an opportunity for you to finally move in the direction that you need to be moving in, because that man, I can guarantee you, if he wasn't for you, he was an anchor in your life. He was holding you back. He was derailing you from your purpose. He was derailing you from your greater, higher potential of life. So we have to get him out the way, and we got to keep him out the way. He isn't the right man. Thank God he's gone. Thank God he lost you. Thank God he is no longer in your life. It was a blessing. It may not have felt like that at the time, or it may not feel like that at the start of this video, but I'm hoping by the end of this, you understand. If that man was not for you, it was a blessing and an opportunity for you to finally move in the direction that you need to be moving in, because that man, I can guarantee you, if he wasn't for you, he was an anchor in your life. He was holding you back. He was derailing you from your purpose. He was derailing you from your greater, higher potential of life. So we have to get him out the way, and we got to keep him out the way. You meet that man who is for you, who you really are truly into, all right? It pulls out all your vulnerabilities, all right? And to a woman who is healthy, it feels like heaven on earth. I mean, it feels so amazing. It's like what you pictured when you were a little girl in the fairy tale. That's how it feels when you're in his presence, when you're with him. It feels like a dream. It's so amazing and wonderful. And when you are a healed woman, you will love this and you will embrace this. And this is going to be a clear sign for you. Now, yes, there are plenty of women who get goo gaga over a guy and it be the wrong guy. And that's why, again, we have to always align these things with the other things we're mentioning on this list. And, of course, most importantly, we have to align it with you actually going to God in prayer to confirm this is the man you should be entertaining or you should be with, all right? But outside of that, you will feel a level of vulnerability. Your ability to be feminine with this man is going to be easier. Your ability to open up to him is going to be easier. Your ability to be yourself with him is going to be easier. All of that falls into vulnerability, and it's an amazing experience. You meet when a woman feels comfortable and safe in the relationship, it's easier for her to open up, whether it be sexually, whether it be in various other ways. So I understand the role that the man plays in this dynamic, but I do think that as a woman, you got to own that energy. You got to come into it. And again, wherever your line is, draw it, but you got to come in with that, not putting it on him to get you to that more open-minded place, but being more open-minded, but having your standards of what you expect in return. What needs to be reciprocated for you to continue to pour into him in that manner. When you are able to show an open-mindedness, that again, I think creates a better energy and environment in the relationship. But also, when we talk about not being judgmental, I think what's important to understand is that, you know, when we talk about men struggling to open up to women sometimes, I've seen it happen in a lot of couples where part of that happens because he's observing how judgmental you are towards other people. Some people say you are what you attract, but that's not always true, because the reality is that you can be an amazing, wonderful woman and you're still going to have damaged, toxic men come your way. And so what's more important than just what you're attracting is what you're entertaining. Now, mind you, yes, do we need to be mindful of what we're putting out into the world and how that can impact the people that we meet? Absolutely. But we do have to pay even closer attention to what we allow to remain in our lives and what we engage in. And the fact remains that there are tons of toxic, damaged men out there. Now, listen, do not take that as all men are toxic and damaged, all right? There are tons of amazing, wonderful men. Seriously, I mean that with full confidence. I know it. I say it with certainty. But that doesn't negate the fact that, yes, there are, one could argue, a growing number of damaged, toxic men that you have to be mindful how to navigate through. And the unfortunate reality is that many women, maybe yourself, has found yourself in a situation where you have gotten caught up with one, when you have allowed things to go too far. And so by doing these things I'm about to lay out for you, I'm going to help you protect yourself, but protect yourself in the right way, because it just hit my spirit, so I have to mention it. Because a lot of people, especially if you're a believer, if you're a spiritual person, they use the mantra of guarding your heart, right? And I know that many of you are going about that the wrong way, because in guarding your heart, you've put walls up. You got walls up, you got snipers on the roof, you got landmines surrounding the walls. You are ready for anything, but ready in a way that only actually causes more damage, more hurt. That's why I say the same walls you're able to protect you are the same walls blocking your blessings. So you have to be mindful of, the goal is not to operate in fear, all right? But it is to operate more in faith. And let me give you this analogy so you can understand. Think about being a driver. If someone is overly protective as a driver, meaning they're constantly looking out for getting hit, an accident, all these things, they're probably going to be a bad driver, because they're not focused on the destination. They're not focused on driving correctly. They're just looking out for all these distractions, not distractions, but potential crashes, potential hurtful situations, so on and so forth, come in their way. A good driver can drive and be intentional with their driving, but still be aware of their surrounding. All right? They don't have to be completely in a constant defensive mode. They just have to be aware. And that's what I want you to do. I don't want you to operate with walls up. I want you to operate with awareness and understanding that allows you to handle when things that aren't best for you come your way, but not to constantly be looking or projecting it onto situations when sometimes they didn't even exist. So let's get to it. The first way for you to protect yourself from damage or from toxic or damaged men while dating is to show up your most loving and positive self. Now listen, because I know some of y'all are like, hell no. That's exactly what got me hurt last time. No. Listen, being positive, loving, sweet, feminine, that's not what got you hurt. Who you dealt with, your selection process is what got you hurt. Your unwillingness to put up boundaries is what got you hurt. There's a lot of other things we're going to mention on this list. That's what got you hurt. But being loving and positive does not work against you. It works for you. And here is why. Number one, within this reason, when you show up as your positive, loving self, you increase your chances of a successful date for the first part, all right? And a higher chance of being able to connect with someone if there's something actually there. Because if you're coming in, again, too guarded, too negative, overly cautious in a way that puts a cloud over the experience, then you're going to push a man away. And you may say, well, if he's toxic, then great. Yeah, but what if he's not? And that's the problem. Many of you have gotten so accustomed or so conditioned to the belief of toxic men being everywhere that you can't recognize a good one when he's in front of you. Or you won't allow yourself to believe he's that good. You will start to look for something wrong in him to validate your perception that all these men are just trash, all right? But it's not true. By remaining in a positive mindset, positive energy, being loving, again, you allow yourself to be able to create a better environment for success, as well as, believe it or not, when you are this positive and loving person and this person is toxic, there are many scenarios where you will actually push the toxic person away because now they can't handle all your goodness. Like, unhealthy people struggle sometimes to be around healthy people. It is easier for them to go run to be around someone else who is toxic because it's more comfortable in that environment. It doesn't call them out. It doesn't put the spotlight on them and their issues, all right? So they're going to find that as a safer situation. And Lord, forgive me, because again, hit my spirit. Some of y'all are doing that. I say that with love, no judgment, but it's real. Some of y'all are running from potentially great situations into comfortable bad ones, into men who you are accustomed to. There's a saying that some women have, excuse my language, but this is the way it's said. Some women have this thinking of, why leave this asshole to go be with another asshole? Let me just stay with the one I'm already with, that I already know, okay? And again, that's a very unhealthy mindset. You've got to get to a place where you remove those negative things, but we'll get into that later. The point is, again, being positive and loving will help expose that man a lot quicker. It will allow you to have more enjoyable experiences, even in moments where maybe things aren't meant to go any further than this, all right? As well as it will allow you to see if this person can connect with your true self. Because listen, that negative, scared person, that's who you are right now. But my prayer is by the time you're done with this video and taking certain steps, you're going to make progress and get to that next level of being healthy and happy. And so when that true self comes out, and if you can bring that out now in your dating process, you get to see which man can honor that. Because that's the thing. He has to be able to honor your positive and loving self. He has to be able to respect your positive and loving self. He has to be able to appreciate your positive and loving self. So we have to show that immediately because, again, believe it or not, if you are coming across negative, guarded, things like that, and let's just say you are dating a toxic man, and more specifically, you're dating a man who only is trying to have fun, trying to have sex with you, that's it. Well, that's not going to drive him away. In a lot of cases, the toxic man who's not, or the man who's not serious about trying to have a relationship is going to be less pushed away by your negativity because his goal is to sleep with you. And so to him, I don't have to tolerate this for too long. I just want to get what I want to get. The guy who's actually trying to have a serious relationship is going to put more weight on that, is going to more likely be pushed away from it. So it's important that you show up the right way to get the right results. And again, don't be afraid that he will take advantage of your sweetness. No, because you can be sweet, loving, positive, and still draw the line on what is acceptable and not acceptable in this relationship. All right, so we move on to number 2. And the second thing you can do to protect yourself from toxic men is not be afraid to ask for things. Now, listen, because I already know some of y'all minds are going to different places, all right? So let me clarify. When I say not being afraid to ask for things, a lot of you have reached a point in life where you have gotten used to doing things for yourself, all right? And you are proudly an independent woman. But I always say to have a successful relationship, you need interdependence, all right? And it's very easy for a woman who has become so used to and conditioned to her independence to have a conflict with sliding into an interdependent role. Interdependent being that you are able to rely on each other, count on each other, do for each other, all right? Yes, you could handle it yourself, but you shouldn't have to, all right? If he's going to be the man that you can share your life with, that you can join together with, then he has to show that he's capable of stepping up in certain areas. He has to show a willingness to do for you. And now, yes, some of you may say, well, why should I have to ask? He should just offer. Granted, he should be offering and looking for ways to be helpful. But if you give off the vibe that I always got it taken care of, or you constantly reject his offers, because that's the thing. As a woman who has gotten used to doing it herself, you may not have even realized how much you turn down his offers. All right. This is a very small example, but it shows you the mindset that happens here. Let's say carrying groceries. Let's say you guys are hanging out and every time you go grocery shopping, you carry your own groceries and he asks you, yo, let me carry that for you. And you always say, I got it. I got it. I can take care of it. I'm good. there will come a point where he will stop asking. Not because he's unwilling to do it, but you have repeatedly told him, I got this. I don't need you to do this. All right? And so now a man's not going to keep trying to push the issue. He's just going to let it go. And this happens at a greater level in so many ways. I was just speaking to a close friend, the gym, and we talked about a friend of his who's been going through some depression, a woman. And one of the issues that she expressed to him was feeling like nobody has her back, nobody checks on her. And what came to me to ask him was, is this a woman who they feel like always has it together? Because what I have seen in life, and this can happen to men and women, but we're talking about women here, is that when you become the rock in your family or in your friend circle, when you become the one that's always, I got this, and you're either afraid to ask for help or uncomfortable with it, or you shoot down help, people start to become conditioned to thinking you're always okay. I don't have to check on you. You're strong. You're going to be fine. Anytime I ask you if you need, nah, you good. You got it. And so we have to be very careful with it, that we're not creating the environment that we're going to end up resenting, that we're going to end up being frustrated by. And so now in romantic relationships, this happens all the time, where the woman starts off not wanting to ask, constantly declining, getting with the man, maybe even getting married. And now you're in an environment where he does not do for you like that, where he does not take initiative. So we've got to establish early that, no, that's not the way this goes. So yes, it doesn't mean you have to ask him for money, okay? It doesn't mean you have to ask him for crazy things that may make the situation uncomfortable. But it could be very simple things like, can you grab that for me? Can you carry this for me? And again, just to initially show that you're willing to accept his help. Now, if you do find yourself always having to ask and he never offers, we got a whole different problem right there. But I want you to get comfortable that when you genuinely need some help, ask. When you need him to pour into you, and it's not even just help or favors. If you need more from him as far as his efforts, you should be willing to ask. If, for example, you need to hear from him more often, you should not be afraid to ask him to reach out to you more, or to establish that this is a requirement for you, this is a need. Because again, he may not understand what you're looking to have poured into you. And by you being more transparent, this is going to be good for you to become comfortable in expressing your needs. And it's going to be good for him, if he's serious, to be able to pour into him. So now by doing this, you expose the toxic man, because when you ask and all he has is complaints and excuses, we got a problem. If he's going to make it this big old issue, we got a problem. If he's never actually doing what he says he will do, we got a problem. Do you see where we're going here? Because the toxic man is trying to do less for more. He is trying to minimize as much effort as possible to get as much as he can from you. So therefore, he will not take kindly to your request of any kind. But the guy who's serious would. So you will have an easier time seeing, can this man be what I need? And let me say this before we move on to the next point. It's not just about what you need today. It's about what you're going to need going forward. All right? So a lot of women say, but I'm fine. I am actually okay doing it myself right now. Cool. But are you going to be okay doing it yourself for the next 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, however many years? If you know that's not the type of relationship you want in the long term, you have to establish that early, because how you start can be how you will finish. And if you start off by making him think he does not have to do for you, then you're going to find yourself in a relationship where he's not doing a damn thing for you. All right, so, man, I like this video. This is some good stuff. I got to say so myself. But let's keep this going, okay? So the next one on this list of ways to protect yourself from toxic men while dating is waiting to have sex. All right? We got to talk about it because it's real. And listen, I always want to acknowledge that I know for many people, the idea is, for many believers, the belief is, okay, we should wait till marriage. That should be understood and established. And I'm not disagreeing that is the best approach to take overall. However, I acknowledge the fact that many will struggle to wait that long. I'm no different. I have struggled in my life. So I have to discuss this within the context of those who may not wait that long, but why you still should wait for at least a certain period of time. Now, what that period of time is, I'm not here to put an exact time frame on it. I'm not going to say 90 days, 120 days, or whatever. But what I will say is you have to wait long enough for you to be able to say with some level of confidence, I know what I'm getting myself into. That's part one. There's a couple other parts of this. But part one is I know what I'm getting myself into. So let's give an example. If you have established, you need to establish with this man, where's he even trying to go with this? The last thing you should be doing is having sex with the guy before you even know if he wants a relationship or not, while you know you do. Now, if you want to be casual, that's one thing, all right? That's your choice as a grown woman. But if you know you're looking for something serious, then doing that before you know where his head is at is a huge mistake. And it's a setup for disaster for so many women and so much disappointment. So we have to know, okay, where are you trying to go? What are we doing here? Part two of it is, what kind of guy is he? Now, listen, I understand that we may not always know all the answers about this person. And we may, there's always things to learn sometimes about people because people aren't always as transparent as they need to be. But you have to have some bit of a foundation of, I have at least a decent idea of what kind of character, what type of individual this is. Now, granted, we can argue that, especially if he's a toxic man, that he can play a role, that he could try to make you think he's this kind of guy. But here's the thing. The majority of toxic, unhealthy men are not going to play the perfect role for months on end just so they can sleep with you, especially in today's world. What did I say in the last point? The toxic man wants to do less for more. He's not going to put his best foot forward. And when I say best foot forward, understand this. He may remain in your life in some capacity, talk to you here and there. Maybe you link up for dates here and there. But he's not going to be consistent with his actions, on point, pouring into you all these things just to wait to have sex with you. That's not what's happening. All right. In the majority. Are there exceptions to the rule? Of course. There's always exceptions. But the majority of cases are not like that. So by waiting, you will weed out most of the men who are just there trying to play games and not be serious with you. Men who will wreak havoc in your life. All right. So by waiting, you give yourself time to expose how serious is he. But also, here's the other, and I argue this might be one of the biggest, outside of spiritual reasons, biggest reasons a woman should wait and people should wait is because sex can cloud your judgment. And the reality is that once you start to have sex with this man, unless it's bad sex, then that might help set you free. that might make it easier for you, right? But here's the crazy thing that I think a lot of women may not understand because a lot of women aren't being forthcoming about it. Plenty of women have become attached to men even with subpar sex, all right? Because it wasn't the quality of the sex that kept them there. It was the giving of themselves. It was the hope for more. It was the fear of being alone. It was the things that are attached to it, not actually the quality. So if a woman can get caught up and blinded by simply having it with a man, then you better believe if it's good, it's going to be a problem for most, okay? Let's just be real. It's going to be a problem. So now you have sex with this man too soon. You didn't know what kind of dude he was. You didn't know what he wanted, where he wanted to take this relationship, this situation. And now you're attached. And now those red flags start to look a little yellow because you're trying to look past it. You're trying to rationalize because you want to hang on to this great intimacy that he may be providing. And believe it or not, some men know how to use that to their advantage, to be that, to remain in your life while being a toxic presence. All right? They know you're attached to that, and they will use that to their advantage. So you got to be careful for your sake and give yourself the opportunity to think clearly and see things for what they are. So by waiting, you help to at least minimize. It doesn't guarantee anything 100%, but it increases your chances of success and not getting caught up with a toxic or damaged man. All right, so now moving along to keep this going. The next thing on this list that you need to protect yourself from getting caught up with toxic men while dating is an accountability partner. Now, here's the reason why I felt it was very important to put this on this list. It's very easy for anybody, men and women, but again, we're talking to women, to break the rules and the boundaries that you said you would set in your life when you're caught up in the moment. All right? Your emotions get the best of you. Again, let's say you did cross the line sexually. That's getting the best of you. Just a desire of having someone. There's so many things that can play a role. The pressure of society or family about you having a relationship, maybe you even having kids and you feel like, well, this is my chance, the pressure of age, all these things can cause an individual to start to settle, to start to be more lackadaisical or more relaxing their standards in a way that can become very unhealthy or that is unhealthy. And so by having an accountability partner, by knowing that someone is watching, it at least increases your chances of staying on the right track. Now, I understand not everyone has someone they can talk to. I'm going to have a solution for that at the end of this point. But for those of you who have, whether it be a good friend, your mother, your sister, whoever, someone that you can talk to and you can tell them, listen, check me on this. Be real with me. Be brutally honest with me. If you see me doing things I should not be doing, let's discuss the way we're supposed to. Let's discuss all these things in this video that we should be implementing. And if you see that I'm making the mistakes, let me know and do not be afraid to be honest. And you have to agree to be receptive to what they have to say, because the reality is that a lot of women struggle being honest with their friends. Not all women, but there's a lot because of how their friends react to their honest advice. All right. Now, of course, sometimes it's not about what they said, it's how they said it. So we know that it's a two-way street when it comes to communication. But I have spoken to a lot of women who stopped trying to give guidance to their friend because they would just reject it or they would get mad at them. And it's like, all right, to keep the peace, if that's what she wants to do, she's a grown woman. But that's not helpful to anybody. So you have to be accountable to being held in check, all right? And give that friend, family member, whoever, permission to do that. And stay on the right track. This is going to be extremely, extremely helpful to you, all right? And be honest about what's going on, because they can't hold you in check if you're going to lie about what happened. You can't be acting like you didn't cross the line of having sex when you did, because now how's she supposed to help you, or he? Because let me say this, the accountability partner can be a he or she. But whether it's a he or she, here's a very important thing that has to be included in who you select. They have to be positive, healthy people. Now, I know that just eliminated some of the people out of all y'all lives. Right? I know that this made it really hard, okay? But listen, and this is why, I'm going to have a solution for you. But we have to be very careful with taking guidance from people who are also coming from a very hurt, broken, damaged place. They may have good intentions, but they may be evaluating through their pain, and that does not allow them to see things clearly either. And therefore, they will give you bad advice, all right? They will interject themselves into the situation rather than understanding this is your situation, and they have to look at it from being in your shoes, all right? So be mindful of that. Now, if you do have some healthy, positive people around you, great, go to them. If you do not, my solution for you is take advantage and join my special coaching program, all right? Because in this group, you have other like-minded women who are all on the path to healing or have already healed and they're still in the program, who are bettering their lives, tapping into their feminine energy, learning how to heal, learning how to find their purpose, all these wonderful things and more, learning how to meet relationship-minded men, all right? It's going to change your life. So, and you get to talk to me twice a month, live coaching calls where you can have your questions personally answered. Go to receivingmyblessings.com, all right? Or click the link in the description or in the comment section and join today. You are going to love it. All right, so here's another one that's extremely important. Kind of mentioned it just a second ago, but let's dive deeper. The other way to protect yourself from toxic, damaged men is to heal from your past. All right? So, excuse me. The reality is that when we have not healed, when we are operating out of a place of brokenness, and please, when you hear me say brokenness, do not be offended by that. Or I hope you won't be. I hope you understand that it's just speaking to the reality that the hurt has broken pieces of us. It has made us struggle to function in a healthy way when we have not resolved it, all right? And because of this, becomes very likely for someone to now get with the wrong person. I've said many times that the person who has not healed is 99% likely to choose the wrong individual to be with, all right? Now, it may not be exactly 99%. I never did an official study, right? But from all my years of coaching, all my years of doing this, I'm pretty confident in saying if it's not 99, it's really close, okay? And the reality is that because when you have been hurt and you haven't resolved it, well, you don't want to truly be vulnerable. There's a level of vulnerability that you may accept, but to really give yourself, you're gonna stop it at a certain point. And so now, the person that you would have a real connection with, the person that true love can exist here, that will make you feel too vulnerable. It will push you past the line. It will make you scared and make you overwhelmed, and you will run for cover or you will sabotage the situation. So instead, you will end up entertaining the person who is good enough to be with, but doesn't take you all the way there because it feels emotionally safer. So now this is the perfect opportunity for toxic, damaged men to come into your life. It goes back to what I said earlier, how when we are operating out of brokenness and we have not resolved it, that it becomes more comfortable to be around other damaged, broken people. And to be around a healthy person feels like it's too difficult. You may feel inadequate, be intimidated. Now, what I hear, the voices I'm hearing in my head from people watching this is, well, everyone is broken. Everyone has issues. No one's really fully whole out here. No, stop with that. Stop with that. That's such in all due respect, it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out that people use to validate their own issues and do nothing about it, okay? Yes, I think it's fair and accurate to say that there's no one who has walked this earth who hasn't at some point been hurt, all right? I think we've all gone through things, but there are many, thousands, possibly millions of people who've done the work to heal. Now, does that mean that hurt will never come again? Of course not. Does that mean they may not have to go through a process of healing again? That they won't have to do it again? Of course not. It may come back around at some point, but as they stand right now, they have healed, and at the very least, healed to the point that those past experiences, hurts, and disappointments are not negatively impacting their present. Now, what I have to say is some of you may think it's not negatively impacting right now. Some of you may think, like I remember real quick, many years ago, to make a long story short, I had a woman who emailed me, and she had a boyfriend. The family didn't like him, and they were going through all these issues, and she didn't know what to do. And something in my spirit was like, there's something you're not telling me. Like you're asking me advice about this scenario, but there's something deeper that you're not being honest about. So and this is all through email. And I told her that. I said, I feel something in my spirit is telling me there's something you're not telling me. Tell me, what is it? What happened to you? And she said her father molested her. But she followed that with, but what does that have to do with anything happening now? And that's the thing. There are people who have detached their past traumas and hurts from what their life is right now, not understanding that it definitely correlates. It is having an impact. This guy that she was with, who, again, long story short, was not best for her, a lot of that stemmed from what she went through with her father and had not resolved. So we have to be mindful of not thinking that, oh, it's not playing any role here. If you haven't resolved it, it's playing some kind of a role. You have to be able to say, I addressed this, I faced this, I resolved this, I released this from my system. Then we can say, okay, cool, you're fine. Other than that, you got to do the work. So bottom line is, you want to avoid toxic men, you've got to heal. Because going back to my original statement when I opened this video up, though you can be a great woman and still have toxic damaged men come your way, if you are a woman holding on to past damage and hurt, yes, you will increase the chances of attracting more or constantly attracting nothing but toxic men. And even when the healthy man tries to come your way, it won't work because you're not at a place to receive that man. All right, so to be honest with you, I had a longer list, but I wanted to let things flow, and I went longer with some of these points, and I thought it just, it is what it is. So I'm going to make a part 2 to this video in the future, but I'm going to give you one more bonus one, all right? And like I said, there's many more things to discuss. We'll leave that for the other video. But here is the bonus thing you can do to avoid toxic men while dating. Don't give him any damn money. Do not give this man money. Now, here's why we got to talk about this, and I had to put this on here. One, let me start with the fact that in today's world, the rise of scammers is through the roof, all right? And I have endless stories of women meeting men who are asking them for money. Men who don't live in this country, sometimes men who do live in the country, sometimes men who live down your block, all right? It doesn't matter where they are, but these men are getting bolder and bolder with asking women for money. And here's the thing. Let me be real with y'all. I'm not a fan of, a man asking a woman for money. I'm not a fan of a woman giving him money, even in a relationship. However, I'm willing to make some level of an exception for that. If you have done your due diligence, you guys are committed to each other, you have evaluated, at least to the best of your ability, that he has good character and is reliable enough. If you want to give or loan whatever him some money, that's up to you. But if you're going to do it, do not give more than you're afraid to lose. Do not give more than it would cause you to become more attached. Because here is one of the problems. There's a lot of women who got, I hate using the word stuck, but who have struggled to walk away from a toxic, unhealthy man because you don't put too much money in the game. Women already have a hard time walking away from their investment in general, emotionally or whatever. But let's just say one story that comes to mind. You gave this joker $5,000. Some of y'all just gasped. Like, did she really just give $5,000? Yes, all right? $5,000. And it wasn't $5,000 that you could just throw away $5,000. No, it was $5,000 that it's going to hurt you if you don't get it back. And so now this same woman I'm thinking about, she did not want to completely end the relationship because she was afraid she was going to never get back her $5,000. So she kept holding on, trying to push things along, hoping she could squeeze the money out of him little by little so she can get her $5,000. Well, lo and behold, she never got her $5,000. And eventually she had to, it all blew up. I don't even think it was her who left initially. It was him who broke up with her. And it's just a whole other story. The point is, it can cause a lot of problems. If you only give what you can walk away from, if you're going to give it. But the other reason why I had to add this on the list is because bottom line is, it's just I'm not saying it's impossible for a genuine guy who loves you to be in a situation where he may ask for money. And again, I think the guy who genuinely loves you, if he does ask, it would more than likely be after you guys are in a committed relationship, and probably after he's already poured into you in that way as well. All right. But there are exceptions to every rule. But the point is, the guy who's comfortable to ask while you're just dating is more than likely trying to use you. Because as I've said in a different video, men, when they're trying to get with you, date you, move forward to a committed relationship, they want to impress the woman they're into. And men know innately that, and from what we've been told by society, that finance is a real issue with women. So to basically say to her, I'm so broke to where I have to ask you for money, the guy who's really into you is not likely to want to take that risk. He would rather go ask somebody else. And that's the thing. If this man is asking you and can't ask nobody else, that's already a sign he's either not good for it, all right, or he flat out wants to use you. Because if he was really an upstanding dude that is reliable, why doesn't he have anyone else he can go to? That should tell you something. But anyways, just avoid it. Again, in the dating process, I'm really against it completely. Once in a relationship, it is at your discretion. But again, make sure you can walk away from it. Make sure this is a guy that you're okay giving that money to. But ultimately,